Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. This is the Town of Somers Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. The date is June 15th, 2021. Denise, would you please take the roll?
Yes. Ms. DiPolito?
Present.
Mr. Gio?
Here.
Mr. Lansky?
Present.
Mr. Newman?
Here.
Chairman Canistra?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Paul, could you put the flag on the screen so we can do the pledge? Thank you. For everybody, I would request that we do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and
justice for all. Thank you, everyone. At the start of the meeting, I'd just like to make note that this is a public meeting. Everyone is from the public is welcome to call in. At the end of each application, we will put phone numbers on the screen and people can call in and ask questions or comment in regard to any application. Okay, so we're going to go right into the first item on the agenda this evening. The first item is a carryover of Christine Crucis Smith. This is an application for an area variance for lot coverage for both the principal building, additions and accessory improvements to an existing one-family dwelling in an R40 residential district at 21 Linway Lane, Somers. I will just make mention that this item was carried over at the request of the board so that we could seek some advice from town council in regard to a further interpretation of the zoning code in regard to lot or building coverage, which is what we have done. First, I'd like to go to the applicant and ask the applicant or representative of the applicant if you have any comments or questions or anything else you'd like to say at this time before we continue.
No, not at this time.
Okay. I'm assuming the applicant remains as originally presented to us.
Yes. Yeah, we are still married.
Okay. Okay.
Excuse me, Victor, for the record, like last month, I'm recusing myself from this application.
Yes. Mr. Gio has requested that he recuse himself from the application. So that does relieve 4 remaining board members. So we do have a quorum to continue this application. Okay, so maybe I'll start here and then I'd like to go to other members of the board for their comments. I did inquire with town council and had a lengthy conference call with the building inspector. The building inspector made a determination that the principal building includes driveways, whether they be pervious or impervious, decks, porches, all are considered a part of the principal building in which there is a restriction or a requirement of lot coverage of no more than 6%. Additionally, in an R40 district, 3% is allowed. So that was the 3% is allowed for accessory structures, which include, for example, sheds, swimming pools, gazebos, cabanas, detached garages, etc. So the applicant, as before us, is significantly over that amount. I'd probably like to go to some of the board members and ask your comments or concerns, questions at this point in time. Art, do you want to start?
Sure. I guess this in some part comes from me. My reading of our table and my familiarity with zoning suggests that 6% would not be for everything, would not include driveways. It's a building coverage number, which is why you would have an accessory use coverage number as well. If you were just doing an impervious surface number, you would kind of combine it as one. And to include driveways, whether pervious or impervious, appears to be particularly punitive to applicants. And it's my interpretation that the building inspector's interpretation would lead to the majority of properties in our town requiring a variance for anything they do. And so this application has 9,773 square feet of total items which would be counted under the building department's interpretation, with approximately 2,300 square feet in decks, the largest amount being driveway, 5,800 square feet. That would be a nearly 300% variance in accordance with the building
What
inspector's
is it?
interpretation, 286%. I don't see that as a variance, which I feel comfortable giving the precedent which that would set. And I don't think that's the way the code was written. I don't think Somers has something particular that no other community in the area has, which says that we shouldn't, we should have the smallest coverage of any town out there. I don't think there's any reason for that. So I'm believing the code should be interpreted differently. Town council, I spoke to him just for a minute because I was in another meeting, and he indicated that the request for the building inspector's interpretation would stand until an interpretation was requested of this board. And I don't know whether one has been requested or not. And so that's kind of a procedural question, whether or not and I would ask Denise whether or not the notice which went out would have been inclusive enough for the public for an interpretation as well as just for the variance.
It was not for an interpretation.
So procedurally, I'm not sure, but it sounds like we may not be able to interpret it at this time. So I'm stuck with it. I have an application which I think it's a pretty standard application. The house is of normal size, the driveways fit the property, and I would like to see this guy be able to improve his home, but I don't feel comfortable with that size variance. And if we don't have an interpretation in front of us, then I don't know what else to do.
Melissa, would you like to comment in regard to this?
Yes, I will kind of go off on what Bart has just explained, and I agree with him about the size of the variance. I've read through the definitions section of the code. I've read through building coverage and compared it against percentage of lot area to be occupied, which is what the schedule says. And then we're told that the percentage of lot coverage to be occupied is synonymous with site coverage. And site coverage is including the principal building structures and the impervious surfaces as well. In looking at the schedule itself, I think something is amiss. And I think that where it does read maximum percent of lot to be occupied and then has a principal and an accessory, that putting aside what the definitions say, I think we're talking more about building coverage instead of site coverage, because we should be looking at principal plus accessory. I don't see how we can make that determination because we're not interpreting the code, and I'm only looking at the application before us just for this area variance, and the size difference is considerable. If we look at the 6% and add in the 3%, that still only gives us 3,796, and the application is for over 9,773. So I'm not comfortable setting a precedent for this size of an area variance, but I do think this is an issue that's going to arise throughout the town. And if it's not us, the town board needs to resolve this discrepancy.
Okay. And Tom, do you have some comments in regard to this?
Well, I guess the thing that I'm most curious about is I guess a question for Tom Tuma. Have you run into this problem a lot, say in the past year?
I don't know how many applications I sent before you in the past year for lot coverage. I know this particular application was before you in 2019, and a variance was granted for a less significant coverage request.
But there may be proposed people that are want to get building permits who run into this coverage issue that might not ever come before us. They may just decide not to do the project because they don't have the coverage. I mean, right? If this is as restrictive as is being suggested, then you would think it would come up quite often, and or you might find violations quite often.
It's been mentioned to me that our zoning ordinance is quite restrictive in this area in comparison to some of our neighbors. I do check, I do a zoning review on every application that comes before me. There's been a couple that are over. Some people have reworked their proposal to be in compliance with it, and I believe I sent a few to the board for waiver of the zoning ordinance.
Okay, so it's just that I completely understand, right, the original suggestion that it does seem restrictive. Then again, there's not a lot of people that are running into the problem. So is it really restrictive? I mean, I guess if you got a really long driveway, then that's going to be a big problem for you. What do you think of that, Bart?
I think the number of cases which I think we are talking about or seeing doesn't really exemplify the problem, because I think virtually every house in Lincolndale, Shannarock, Purdy's, all of our neighborhoods, none of those would fit under this. And my basic concept is zoning has to be in conformance with the comprehensive plan. And our comprehensive plan doesn't anywhere say that we're the most restricted community out there. It doesn't say that we want to make all of our existing housing subject to a variance. So this is an existing house. He's changing some things modestly, but he's up against this big variance. He obviously got approved at some point in time. And there wasn't this big variance for his initial approval. And he doesn't predate zoning. So somewhere along the way, there was a different interpretation of the code. I don't know when the interpretations change, but I can tell you that if you go into any one of our communities, and probably most of the board members here, if you look at the long driveways, there's no way it matches. And it's not like some of the communities around us have less restrictive. Every single community. There's something amiss here. And I think it's very simple that building coverage is not lot coverage. Or if there is something, now obviously this could be remedied by the Z.B.A, but would be better remedied by the town board with, changes to the code. So we wouldn't, we could have more definitions in our code that we don't have, and that would clarify things. But what we have in front of us is an interpretation which really, whether there's one person, a lot of people go in front of the building department and say, I don't want to spend the money. I'm not going to change my house. I'm not going to do this. I don't want to run the gamut, or I'm going to change my plans. And if that's not the right code, then, we're doing the public a disservice.
So I would agree that I don't think the way to handle this is through an interpretation. I think the way to handle this is a clarification of the code by the town board.
May I say something? I don't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to bring something along the line with what Mr. Lansky was saying.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm starting to work on a project actually right around the corner from Mr. Smith. And I have just finished another project on Elijah Purdy's Road. Both of those are non-increase of volume projects. Both of those do not meet the current zoning code, and they're over by 1,500 feet, 2,000 square feet, if you go by these calculations. We're not doing anything other than adding on to the house. We're not increasing footprint, but we are increasing area. It does seem that there is a discrepancy with how the terminology is with this. I do a lot of zoning cases, and in a lot of municipalities, in most municipalities, there is a small or a reasonable size for the building, say 20%, 15%, depending on what zone you're in. Then the coverage, which they consider impervious, is somewhere along the lines of 50, 60, 70% to include the house. So they're throwing another 40 to 50% on. I think that there might just be a definition missing from the code, or a word that says lot coverage includes this, or building coverage is just this. Like, I think there is a little discrepancy there. It just, what I'm trying to get at is 3 projects I'm working on, all 3 are over to start with right out of the gate.
Mr. Tetra, what are the ages of those other houses?
Let's see. I would probably say that the one around the corner from Mr. Smith is probably about the same age. I don't know how old that house is. The one on Elijah Purdy is
My question is essentially if they were built under the same zoning code. Because if they're built under the same zoning code and there's no zoning variance, then somewhere along the way an interpretation was changed because nothing else would have changed. So, and that's kind of my point, is that if most of the houses in Somers were built during the zoning code, which hasn't changed tremendously, there's been some revisions, but generally speaking, this is not something which has changed greatly. And so those houses you're working on would either have variances or would have to be built before the code. And I doubt either of those is true.
Yeah, I can't say for sure, Mr. Lansky, but
Okay.
they are not like old cottage style farmhouse, structures. They're, raised ranches, that sort of thing.
So 70s and 80s is raised ranches typically. Okay.
One thing I would like to say is part of the discussion that I had with Jerry Riley today and the building inspector, Tom Tuma, was that, there does seem to be some ambiguity. The code isn't completely clear. And we talked about possibly the building department, maybe in concert with the zoning board, putting a letter together to town board to ask them for further clarification. And Tom Tuma brought up the idea, which I thought was good, that we should talk. I wanted to talk to the zoning board tonight and get your comments about doing something like that, because I think we definitely need some clarification, especially you were very helpful, Bart, in providing kind of a schedule of what the adjoining towns have as far as lot coverage numbers, and they are significantly higher. That doesn't mean that Somers or the town board can't decide that they want a lower coverage for Somers, but it does seem to be something that I think we should bring to the town board's attention, for them to look at. I did want to make mention of just 2 other quick things. We're talking about the 6% is an R40 district, which is 40,000 square foot lots. If I look at the zoning schedule for R10 districts, which are 10,000 square foot lots, which are much smaller, the maximum percentage of lot to be occupied goes up to 18%. So it does significantly go up, but are they still going to be over?
Of course.
That's the question. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to make mention of, I did want to go back to the previous application of Christine Smith back in 2019 to see what was done at that time. Denise was kind enough to go back in the archives and find everything for me. What it seems like back then in 2019, that the existing coverage was about 6,200 square feet, which is significantly over, but the applicant was proposing something to us at 5,900 square feet. So even though the 5,900 square feet is significantly over, it was less than what was currently there. So I think the logic behind the board's approval at that time was, okay, lot coverage is over, but they're decreasing lot coverage. So we approved it. So I don't think we were approving something significantly above what the code allows. We were just approving a decrease in the lot coverage. Because I did some calculations also, the applicant's current proposal at 9,700 square feet, 9,773 to be exact, would be 23.2% lot coverage, when 6 is what the code allows per the interpretation of the building inspector and town council. So I too am very concerned about approving something so significantly above the code, what the code allows, and then of course setting a precedent, because then where does it stop?
Excuse me, I have a question. What exactly did the attorney say? What was his interpretation? Did he determine that impervious space included the driveway, the decks, patios? What is his interpretation?
Yes, and we spoke specifically about this issue. Town council and the building inspector's interpretation that the principal building also includes decks, porches, driveways, and and I asked, what if the driveway is a gravel driveway? So it's pervious. He said, doesn't matter. I said, what if it's a dirt driveway? Doesn't matter. Which, you know, I think is a very strict interpretation, but that's what it is. Even a deck, I might argue, is pervious, because with slots in the deck, water could run through and go underneath. So
okay, so just to be clear, and I do understand what you said before based upon our 2019 application. We were building, and David, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think we were building almost a 2,000 square foot 3-car garage on the opposite side of the house. The only difference is that we were actually going to be knocking down or tearing up the driveway that's currently in existence. The change is that the new garage, which is also 3-car garage, what is significantly smaller, is going on the opposite side of the house than the original plan, and the driveways remain. So I'm a little, I understand what you're saying, but if you really look at it from a practical standpoint, we're really just talking about a driveway making the difference. And somehow or another, to me, that seems wrong. Okay, because the size of the house, the footprint of the house itself in 2019 was going to be significantly larger. And we were going to have to cut into the curb and change the street. As we were looking at the impact of the community, as we were looking at the impact of our neighborhood as a whole, we realized that it made more sense for us to condense the size of our house, and that coupled with the fact that less kids are living in the house at this time, but still the same. In reality, I'm having difficulty understanding why the driveway itself is going to make such a big difference, since we're actually making the house smaller than the original approved application in 2019.
I think you make a very good argument, and I think that is exactly what the board is struggling with. As Mr. Lansky had pointed out, just because somebody has a long driveway, why is that included in the coverage? But one thing you have to keep in mind here is that, as the zoning board, we don't make the zoning laws. We basically are supposed to follow the code. We can give reasonable relief from the code. If somebody is a small percentage over or a few feet over, we can deviate from the code. It's when we have significant deviations that we're kind of stuck. And that's why I think what you're hearing from the board, that I think we're going to have a problem approving this, because it's many times, it's 300-400% over, what we see the code allowing. And even if we may think the code is, let's say, not fair or not reasonable, there's not much we can do about that other than request town board take another look at it. Town board is the, they pass the law, they pass the zoning code, so they could certainly change it. But without a town board change of the zoning law, I don't know how I could vote for this application at this point in time, even though I sympathize with you as the applicant.
So I have one more question for you, and this is really for Tom. Tom, is the original application that we put in 2019 still valid?
It is.
That was approved. That application was approved. Yes. So
Okay,
you're
so
fine.
if we went back to the original site plan, or the original plan, but made some modifications to the house to make that 60 by 60 garage, which is significantly larger than the garage we're asking for right now. If we made modifications to the house, Tom, does that application hold? If we
Yes, it
took away
does.
the driveway?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Now, when you say, Tom, the original application holds up, well, they made an application and we had approved it in 2019. That application is approved and standing. But am I hearing the applicant correctly in that you're saying you want to back up that application to before we approved it and go back to that?
Well, no,
That to me would be a new application.
No. It sounds to me as if you're currently saying that this application that we've put forth now is likely to be defeated. And if that in fact is the case, and since we are fighting the clock when it comes to material, building supplies and material and labor and all these other types of things, if we go back to the original approved plan in 2019, this becomes a mute conversation.
Your variance should still be intact.
Yes,
That's my
because
point.
that was
So our variance is still
5,900.
intact.
Yeah, that was total lot coverage of 5,930 square feet.
So I don't know, once you got your variance, you can apply for a building permit. If you have a change in the plans, as long as there's a question of whether or not that change triggers you going back to the Z.B.A. I'm assuming that you would stick with within your variance and then wouldn't need to go back to the
ZBA.
Z.B.A.
Within the variance of what was approved before, which would mean we'd have to eliminate the long driveway. The driveway would still end up being on the other side. But ostensibly, just to be clear, Tom, all you're saying is that we would have to do is just supply you with the building design or the construction design, and we should be able to get our permit.
Yeah.
Am I understanding that correctly?
You are.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out here also, I'm looking at the 2009 application. And the 2019 application indicates the existing was 6,226 square feet, and what was proposed was 5,930.
Because we removed the driveway.
Right. Now, if I look to the current application, it says existing 6,226 square feet of coverage. But shouldn't that really be 5,930 square feet of coverage?
No, it shouldn't, because
that's what was approved.
We started with the existing in both applications. So the 5,000 number that you're working with is the proposed final number based on that initial 2019 application. The 6,000 number that you're looking at is the snapshot of the site currently before we are designing anything.
I want to point out just one thing to the applicant. There's a couple of different courses that you can take here, and I understand your frustration. My issue is not with what you're proposing. My issue is with the code interpretation, and the board has not been asked to interpret the code. I don't know how the board would vote if it was asked to interpret the code. So you could ask the board to interpret the code, and who knows what's going to happen there, and you're going to spend some time. You could also wait, and the board may send a letter to the town board and the planning board and may ask them to either legislatively define some things and pass something, or somehow improve it, or even give us more guidance so that in the future applicants have a different path. Or you can go with your existing variance and do what you need to do. It's not a problem I have with you.
To answer your question, I'm inclined to go back to my architect, David, who was very handy, and would likely be able to come up with a redesign for us that would fall within the variance. Unfortunately, this is not my fight. Okay, it's my fight for this particular application, But my interpretation of the way I see things going is that what needs to happen here is someone within the board, I'm assuming board president or whoever designate, needs to go back before the town and say, hey, listen, we may have a problem here. Unfortunately for us, we're against the clock. Okay, so because of that, I unfortunately don't have that luxury of saying I'm going to wait 90 days to see if the town approves it and so on and so forth. Now, what I would say to you is this: if you wish to take a vote to make my life a little easier and that of my wife's a little easier, then take a vote. But it does sound like to me that you were leaning toward denying our application. And I don't particularly like to have things denied. Okay, so if my option is to go back to the existing plan and submit that to Tom and have Tom approve that, and we start construction, then that's probably the direction we're going to go. But if you'd like to vote on it, then go ahead and interpret it. I can't say whether one way or another whether I think the interpretation is wrong because I didn't write it. It just seems a little odd to me that for a few 100 feet, that I'm able to approve a significantly larger building footprint based upon the original approved application. But again, it's not for me.
Yeah, I think unless the application is withdrawn, we would have to take a vote, right, Vic? So that
Correct. So the applicant can withdraw the vote. Withdraw the application, then we have nothing to vote on. We can only vote on the application before us because that's what has been noticed. One other thing I do want to make mention of, I am looking at the current plans of the application here, and I'm looking under the lot coverage calculation prepared in the plans. If I add up all the square footage for the existing, it totals per the plan 6,226, but when I physically add it up, it's 6,750, which doesn't agree with anything we've prior approved here. So I think that has to be addressed somehow.
Well, they have their variance. They'll just have to present plans that that stay within the variance.
Yeah. So I'm just mentioning to the applicant, it looks like there's an addition calculation on the lot coverage calculation for the existing square footage.
Yeah. Well, we'll make sure that when we submit it, we fall within the zone. Now, let me ask you this just for my own edification. If we were to put a separate unit, a separate garage on the lot that's not attached to the house, but say, for instance, was 8 or 10 feet away from the house, what then would happen?
I think if my looking at the code, and Tom Toomey, you can back me up on this, is that if it's an accessory structure, then they have another 3% to work with.
Yeah, that falls within a different category on the zoning schedule.
But the square footage of the garage, the 3% would just be for that accessory building. Is that correct? The driveways and everything
That's
else
the
is
way.
going to fall into 6?
I consider the driveways part of the principle in my interpretation. So yes, to answer your question, it would be for just the accessory structure.
And if you had 3% to work with on an accessory structure, if I take 3% of 42,183, which is your lot, I get 1,265 and change of square feet for a garage if it was an accessory structure.
So technically speaking, I could build a 2-car or even a 3-car garage of 1,000 square feet somewhere else on the property that was not attached to the house.
That's what the code says as far as accessory structures.
Okay.
Do I see some illogic in that? I do. But let me say this, whether, no matter how you proceed, I think
Right.
This board, along with the building department, is going to go to town board and ask them to look at and address this issue, because you're seeing the same kind of issues that we see.
Yeah.
But, once again, we don't have the
I
power
understand.
purview
It's your job to
change zoning.
interpret it. Yeah. But I think it's reasonable to believe that all of us can see the hypocrisy here, right? Or how this is not quite correct.
There does seem to be some issues, yes.
Yes.
And I think that we should, Yeah, we should really try to expedite this and get that memo over to the town board quickly. There are probably other people that may be in this situation in terms of pricing and availability of construction materials.
Yeah.
So let's try to get this done quickly, get it on the next town board agenda if they choose to take it up.
I
So
will
how-
draft something in the morning.
How can we as residents assist you in this process? I mean, is there something you want to name the new zoning law after us? You're welcome to do so.
So
Chrissy's law sounds really good to me.
what
Town will probably charge you for naming rights, so probably don't want that.
Well, if we can put her face on it, it'll be fine. It'll be all worth it.
You should definitely show up though if it does come to the town board agenda, you should definitely show up for public comment at that meeting and let them, explain to them your story. And they'll see a very practical reason why they might want to change that.
Okay, that's fine. We'll be more than happy to assist you. And Denise, whatever I can do to help, we'll do. Okay, so procedurally, what is it? Should we withdraw? And David, I look for your advice on this as well. Do we withdraw and work within the existing approval? And David, I should ask you while I've got you here on the hot seat, can you fix this?
I can only do so much, Mike.
We can go out.
No, we'll have to see, because we'll have to discuss how we want to work the design out and stay within those parameters, or even lessen them.
Got it. Or we can look to put a separate structure on the property that's separate from the house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also too, possibly town board, I can't guarantee, but maybe they might make a quick decision in regard to this.
Okay.
Lumber prices from last month are down 40%. So maybe a little waiting might work in your favor substantially.
Yeah. It's insane. Can you imagine that plywood costing $99? It was $12.99 before. Crazy.
It's crazy.
Okay. All right. So I'm guided by whatever you suggest at this point.
So I have a question then, Mike. Do you want to withdraw, or can we maybe table it and see what happens? Does the board have to make a decision on this now, or can we not defer it, whatever the term is?
Carry over.
Carry over.
Or Mike, do you not want to do that?
Well, we're gonna have
Well,
to-
does it affect our ability to use the existing approval if we decide to go that direction?
No, I think
No.
what'll happen is if we just carry it over till next month,
Okay.
but if we don't hear back by next month, you could just withdraw the application at that time before the next
So-
meeting.
Okay. So Denise, what do you recommend?
So you certainly can carry it over. The
Okay.
July meeting, so the town board has one collective meeting this month in July, which is on the 8th. Tom and I and Vic and I will draft something out in the morning to get out to the town board so that we can get that on the agenda in time for that meeting. And then our July meeting is on the 20th. So yeah, let's see what they say. And maybe it'll work in your favor. And if it doesn't work in your favor, then you have the option to withdraw. Your variance goes with the property forever.
Right.
Can, go back and at that point, it's between you and Dave and Tommy to get a building permit.
Roger that. Okay.
So go for
All
a
right.
vote
So
next
why
month.
don't we table it to next month and see what you guys can do, and where we can help, we will. I do not believe we will be in town July 20th, so we would have to do it via Zoom if we were to
You
participate.
can Zoom from wherever you are.
My
See
lady.
that? That's what I
Yeah,
like about
lady.
Zoom meetings.
Yeah, I got you.
I do want to say one other thing. Is the board in agreement that we'll carry over this application to next month? Is anybody objecting to that?
No,
Okay. All right, then we'll carry it over to next month.
thank you.
Okay. But before I conclude also, we should go out to the public to see if anybody has a comment in regard to this application. Paul, if you could just put up the call-in numbers. So anybody who wishes to speak in regard to this application, you can call into the meeting, or if somebody's on the meeting right now and you'd like to speak, just use one of the call-in numbers. They're in the white box. Then you're going to enter the Zoom meeting ID number, which will hook you right into our meeting. And you can make any comments that you like in regard to this application. We'll just give it a minute to see if we get anybody calling in.
Can I make a suggestion while we're waiting?
Sure.
I think the memo that goes to the town board should be agreed upon by the entire board before it gets submitted. The language in it.
I think we could do that.
Right.
You know, we could work on drafting something, Tom, and then I don't see any reason why, Denise, we can't forward it to all board members.
Right, that's what we
Sure.
talked about
Sure.
this morning. I would draft it, Tommy would look at it, you would look at it, and then from there, we would share it with the entire zoning board, but we need to act, you know, move quickly on this because the deadline for submissions to the July 8 meeting will be next week.
Okay, so we have to do something quickly then, because I think no matter what, whether it's this applicant or someone else, I think we need to clarify the issue. And the town board could come back and say the 6% and the 3% are what they want. You know, they're the town board. They make the decisions here, so. Okay. So do we have anyone attempting to give us a call? No. No. Is there anybody on our call right now or in our meeting who would like to speak in regard to this application?
I don't see anybody here on our end.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, I think we should then conclude the public comment portion. Okay, so we are going to move this or carry over this application to next month's meeting, which is July 20th, 2021. Okay. So we're now going to then move on to the second item on the agenda this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I'll be
Thank
in
you.
touch.
Okay.
Okay. Paul, we could take down the numbers here. Okay, great. So we're going to go to the second item on the agenda. That is of Judy Goretto. This is an application for a 4-foot front yard area variance for the installation of a new 2-car detached modular garage to an existing 1-family dwelling in an R10 residential district at 8 Horton Drive, Yorktown Heights. Is someone here to represent or speak for the applicant?
Yes, I am.
Could you please give us your name and address?
Judy Goretto, 8 Horton Drive. It's Yorktown Heights, but I'm in Somers.
Okay. Could you briefly describe your application for us and what you're seeking?
Well, would like to put up a 2-car garage. We currently have a parking area that's blacktopped, but we're shy 4 feet from the front because the modular will be 24 by 24. And I believe our current one is 21.
21 and 22 by 22.
Yeah,
Okay. And you can't move the garage away from the property line? You need to encroach by 4 feet?
yes, because we had a fence put up around the perimeter of the house last year. We have a large maple that's been there for years, so we really can't go inward. We have to go outward.
So Tom, is the applicant actually looking for 2 things here? One is a 4-foot variance from the front yard, but isn't there also a rule of no accessory buildings in a front yard?
Yeah, actually, the code says required front yard. And in the Goretto's instance, the required front yard in the R10 zone is 25 feet.
Okay. So as long as you're not within 25 feet, so it's really the same issue. The 4 feet is the same issue?
Their garage is proposed at 21 feet, and the required setback for the accessory structure garage is 25 feet.
Okay. So even though it's in a front yard, that doesn't change the variance
No.
that's needed here?
No, it's just,
Okay.
it's just a setback.
Okay.
Now, is this garage a one level or is it two, level and a half for storage with an attic?
Oh, no, no, it's just one level, 2-car garage, just, and it'll probably be less than the height of the house. So, no, it's just one level. That's it.
I know this not in front of us, but you're gonna have electric in there too?
Yes,
Thank you.
Will there be a basement or plumbing in in this garage?
no,
Okay.
no, it's strictly for the cars.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have any kind of a design on the garage or anything like that. Yeah.
What-
Go ahead.
What's the lot coverage?
The what?
If it's
The lot-
within the covered
I
part.
have it. It's in the package that was presented. There is a elevation of the garage. Did the board not receive that?
I do not have a copy of the elevation.
Okay, I have it in this package here that Denise
Yep.
provided to
Yeah, no,
me.
I have it.
Yeah, I sent
There's
it.
there's a survey indicating a proposed location, and
I
there
have that.
is a zoning schedule that indicates the coverage, and the lot coverage is in compliance.
Yes.
Okay.
The coverage max for that district is 7%, which is 1,820 square feet. The proposed garage covers 576 square feet. And I thought that information was in your package.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't look through it.
It is in everybody's packet.
It's there.
Okay.
I have the,
Yeah,
I have
so-
this, yeah, I have the site plan and I do see the calculations on the coverage. I don't have the elevation diagram, but what's the height of the building?
It's the maximum permitted height is 15 feet midpoint of the roof. This structure is approximately, it's between 10 and 11 feet to midpoint of the roof. So it's well in compliance with the, what's permitted.
Tom, could I ask a question? You mentioned in answer to Vic's question earlier, the accessory building cannot be in front of the required front yard. In other zones, is that different where it can't be in front of the house? Regardless of how.
No, or if it were R40 zone, the required front yard would be 40 feet.
Okay, so it doesn't matter where the house is.
No, nope. We had a similar case for a accessory structure within the last 2 years. And actually, board member Carpenetto had raised this question. The applicant was seeking, my interpretation of the code back then was the front yard was anything closer to the street than the nearest point of the principal structure. The board discussed it at length, and the determination of the board at the time was that the setback had to meet the required front yard setback, not being in front of the principal structure had nothing to do with the way the zoning ordinance reads. Then the applicant was asked, do you want to come back for an interpretation or you want a variance? And they decided they just wanted the variance. And my view on that interpretation was changed at that meeting, revisiting the language in the code.
Right, I recall that. That's why I was asking.
Now,
Yeah.
I do have a question regarding the location. Now, is the front of the garage, where the garage doors would it be facing the road or on the current driveway?
No, it'll be facing the driveway. So the side of the garage will be facing the road.
Okay, now why couldn't you put the garage behind the tree, behind, in the back, closer to the back of the lot?
Because we have a fence. We had a black wrought iron fence put around the whole perimeter. Now, we have
Okay.
gates that open into the driveway, but to
Okay,
go
but
into the driveway would be defeating our purpose.
I know, because looking at the plans here, okay, you have an asphalt driveway and you have the aluminum fence cutting right through it. So is the driveway towards the back of the house eliminated? Where you have the aluminum fence?
Would it be eliminated, you're saying?
No, is it eliminated? Because you're saying you have an aluminum fence.
Yeah,
Because-
but would be defeating our whole purpose of having a garage. The snow has gotten too much, okay, to handle. The driveway is long. But the whole thing is, we're still working. We would like the garage so that it would be easier for us going forward with the winters to get out of the garage and into the road.
No,
We
listen, I
don't want to make it longer.
understand that completely, but I'm just a little confused. Why can't you, what, no, you have a long driveway, okay, that wraps around to the back of the house. The proposed driveway is in front of your fence, how I'm looking at these plans, okay, in front of the maple tree. Why couldn't it be put further back where you can have easy accessibility to back out a greater distance to make the turn pulling out of your driveway? That's what I'm a little confused with.
I kind of see what you're saying, Arnie. To me, it would make more sense to put the garage past the maple tree on the driveway. That way it's not in the front yard. There would be no variance required. And I think that would be a more practical spot for the garage.
Yeah, but
Unless
the
there's a
driveway,
problem
but
with
the
septic. That's the
The
only
what?
thing I can think of.
septic is in the backyard.
The very, very backyard.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, and the driveway is on a hill. So to put the garage in the middle of the driveway going down doesn't make any sense. And to put it all the way down at the bottom of the driveway, that's what we're trying to avoid because of the fact that in bad weather, when it snows, I don't have to clean the whole driveway to get the car out. It would be already up at the top of the driveway.
So your property slopes from the road down?
Yes,
Correct.
right.
Yes.
Yeah, because we don't have a topo here, so yeah, we can't really
Yeah.
tell that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, no, it slopes down.
Because, yeah, I can see, okay, is the driveway going to be expanded? So when you back out of your driveway, I mean, back out of your garage, you have an easier, radius to make a turn. Is that going to,
No, that's
Take
not
place?
gonna happen.
No,
No.
it'll be fine because we already have a parking area there. It's blacktopped. Okay, and we park the cars there now, so we have enough swing. I mean, we're just going to be putting a garage over the current spot, and we just need those 4 feet from the front for the variance.
all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
If you look at a Google satellite of this, you could see it's currently a parking area.
Are you talking about where the garage is proposed, Tom?
Yes. I think that I was reminded of that case that Tom Tuma referenced, where we were talking about accessory buildings in the front yard. And I imagine, I mean, that was if I recall, that was a much bigger lot. I think there were several garages on that lot. I would imagine the reason that we try not to do that is just in terms of a look and feel of the neighborhood. This one's a little close to the lot next to it, and well in front of the house. I don't know if that's a consideration for anyone.
Yeah, I mean, to me, if, just looking at the site plan, I kind of agree. It seems to be a little unsightly, at its current proposed location, especially in an R10 district. Now, this lot, though, it looks like this lot is bigger. It's an R10 district, but this lot is 26,000 square feet. Am I reading that correctly?
That's what it says.
Tom, as far as you know, is this a 26,000 square foot lot?
Yep, turn it to the survey now to confirm that. Wow, it's really small. I need a magnifying glass. It's 200 by 130. 10,000 square feet would be 100 by 100.
Yeah, that is 26,000.
77. Yeah.
26,000 square feet. Yeah, just do the calculation.
So it's 2.5 times the size of the minimum permitted lot to be built upon in this particular district. It's like 2.5 lots right here. 2.5 building lots.
Right.
So yeah, I completely understand the practical reason. They're trying to shorten the driveway essentially and keep the cars covered from the weather, and lessen the amount of clearing that has to be done in the driveway. So I completely understand the practical aspects of the request. A little concerned about building garages in front of houses.
No, listen, I agree. Is there any other houses in Horton Estate that has a garage that's in front of the house?
When I looked at Google Satellite earlier, I took a little ride up the street on the satellite, and I didn't see anything else like that. No. I didn't go all the way, but not in the vicinity.
Yeah. Has the applicant spoken with your neighbor where the garage is being proposed?
Yes.
And what were their comments? Can you tell me who you spoke with and what their comments were in regard to the proposed placement of the garage?
Raymond Thomas, that's where it's adjacent to where the garage is going to be. Currently, we have a pine, a large pine. It's probably 20, 25 feet. So that's blocking the cars currently, and that'll be the 5 feet from that side. So we're cleared there, but they had absolutely no objection whatsoever.
Will the look and the siding on the proposed garage match your primary residence, or will it look differently?
No, it'll match. It will match.
Are you using identical siding?
Well, they're using it's a modular.
Right, because
And
modulars come pre-made, right?
Correct. And we have a shed that matches almost identically to the house that we purchased years ago. So it's going to be similar to that.
And how will that compare to the look of the house?
Oh, it'll enhance it.
But will it look similar?
Oh, sure. No, it will. We just had the house vinyl sided in 2018, and it'll be a gray, and it will match.
I don't know, Bart, Melissa, Arnie, what do you think in regard to the garage in the front of the property?
Well, I personally do have a problem with it. I would like to see it behind the maple tree. I realize the gentleman is concerned about the snow removal. Granted, it's not in front of us, but I have questions, regarding, if there is 3 inches of snow, you still can get out. Now, if it's 6 inches of snow, really no one should be out on the road. That's my theory. I would like to, if all possible, postpone this and do a site walk.
Bart, Melissa, what are your feelings on this?
I'm sharing the feelings of the board. I'm not enthused about putting the garage as proposed in the front yard. I prefer to see it in the rear so it was less visible throughout but I'm not opposed if the board wants to do a site walk so that we can actually see. I'm not prepared to grant it today without more.
I think that makes sense. Bart, what do you think?
I share the board's concern about having the garage in front of the house. I also have been scrolling up and down the street, and I don't see a lot of structures close to the road or any garages in front of the house. My only concern is that the ask is not that big an ask. They're asking for 4 feet, and they have 21 of 25 feet. So it's not that great a variance. So frankly, I could go either way. I struggle, I'm sure the board has given, variances of this size, but every neighborhood's different and every neighborhood gets impacted differently. So if the board wants to do more research, then, enable people to do a drive-by and what have you, obviously, I hate to put any applicant out, but I'm in favor of that.
Right, and just to agree, this is not a big ask in terms of size of the variance. I'm more concerned about the variance and the impact on the characteristic of the neighborhood. And I've been scrolling too, I don't see buildings in front of these other properties on the street.
Because that's one of the things I'm concerned with. If we open up the Pandora's box about letting them have the variance in the front of the house, how many other applications are going to be coming in front of us for the same thing?
I think it's a good point, especially in an R10 district where 10,000 square foot lots, you have everybody asking for that. I think it would be unsightly in an R10 district. So it sounds like to me the board would like to do a drive-by before we consider this further. Does that seem to be the consensus of the board at this point in time?
I would be agreeable to that.
Okay. All right. So to the applicant, it looks like the board would like to do a site visit to drive by the property, maybe drive down the driveway just quickly and, just see what we're dealing with, so that we can make a better decision here. Because with the information we have, I think we're kind of blind as to the neighborhood, the slope on the property, and where you're proposing. So I think we're looking to carry this over to next month's meeting and do a site visit in the meantime.
Okay, you're more than welcome.
Okay. First, before we continue, I do want to take this out to the public to see if anyone out there has any comments or questions in regard to the application. So Paul, if you could once again put up numbers. I'll reiterate, you can call one of the numbers in the white box. And then when you connect, you just input the Zoom meeting ID number and it'll bring you into our meeting. Does anybody currently on the phone call have any comments or questions in regard to this application? Okay, so I guess we're going to just give the public a minute to call in and we'll see if anyone has anything to say.
Now, how are we going to handle this site walk in the sense of notifying the applicant? Do we have permission to pull down the driveway at any point in time, or do we have to reach out to Denise to set up a time frame?
Does the applicant have any concern if we drive by the property and, board members at their, when available, we obviously will not come in the middle of the night or something like that, but during reasonable hours, if we were to drive down the driveway and come back and go back out, would that be okay with the applicant? Or did you want to set a specific time that we should come?
No, I think you can do it. If you see a car there, I'd appreciate it if somebody would call because we have a dog. That was part of the reason for getting the gate. So you couldn't just come through. I mean, you could clearly see, but we both work during the day, and during the day the dog isn't out. So you're more than welcome to come during the day.
Okay. And when you say a gate, is there a gate, like a driveway gate across the driveway?
Yes, there is.
Okay. So actually we couldn't really drive down the driveway, only partially down the driveway, I guess, and we could probably look from the gate.
Well, you could open the gate. The gate won't be locked during the day.
Okay.
So the only concern is if there is a car in the driveway, it's a possibility that there is a dog loose in the yard.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And just give a call. I mean, you have both our cell phones, or I'll supply them. So.
Okay. It may be sufficient just to drive to the gate and then look past the gate. That may be sufficient, or if a board member wants to go in. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can always provide those cell numbers to Denise. Don't do them over the air here.
No, no.
Yeah, and we'll, you know, we can always give you a call, so. Okay, so if there's, Paul, has anyone called in or are we,
No, we're not getting anybody here over on our end.
okay. All right, so I think we're gonna close down the public portion of the meeting then. And as indicated, we're gonna carry over this application to next month's meeting. And in the meantime, the board members will do a site visit. And hopefully we'll be able to make a decision at next month's meeting. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you to the applicant, and we'll see you next month.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
You too.
Okay, we're gonna go to the third item on the agenda this evening. This is of John and Nora Mackey.
One of yours.
This is an application for a 9-foot rear yard area variance for a new deck to an existing one-family dwelling in an R80 residential district at 49 Hallocks Run, Somers. Is there someone here to speak for the applicant?
Yep, I'm here, Nora
Hi.
Mackey.
Okay. Hi, and I assume your address is 49 Hallocks Run, Somers.
Yes.
Okay. Briefly describe your application for us.
So we want to add on a deck to the rear of our house. And we started the variance application last year, and when we were in the process over the winter thinking about it, we realized that it would be better for us if the deck was wider. So we, you know, that's why we're here tonight.
Okay,
So we'd like the deck to be wider.
Okay,
and
so
we
you
have
did you withdraw the previous application, or was that approved and you're coming back for a second application?
No,
I'm sorry, could you
It was
clarify?
it was approved.
The previous
it was
application
approved.
was approved, and so now
Yes.
the applicant is coming and has changed the application. Okay,
Yeah, the previous application, I think the board approved a 7-foot relief from the setback, and the applicant's planning to make the deck is larger now, thus increasing the encroachment and needing an additional 2-foot relief from the code.
okay. I do also see here an email or memo from the Somers Chase Board, which I'll quote from them: takes no exception to the proposed deck plans provided unless and until a variance from town ordinance is required to proceed with the work, et cetera, et cetera. And that's us from Tanya Anthony.
yes,
Okay. Have you spoken with your neighbors about this application?
yep. The only neighbor that's directly affected is so I know if you guys are looking on Google, it's the people on the other side of the very tall trees, and he has no exception. He has no problem with it.
No objection to it? Okay.
No objection.
Okay. Okay. And so you're looking for a 9-foot rear yard variance. I guess you need 30 here and 21 will exist if the deck is built.
Yeah,
Okay.
And I assume from this drawing that it's just that one corner, that the other corner does meet the required setback?
And the other
me,
the other corner has a variance for it. Building permit was issued based on the previous approved variance, and the Mackeys are midstream in constructing their deck, and they came to me and they said, we want to make it larger, thus encroaching on the side yard setback. So I denied the application, and Ms. Mackey's before you.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're going from 7 feet to 9 feet. So this is is this a 9-foot variance or a 2-foot variance from the previous variance?
Thank you.
I think it was proposed to be a 9-foot total variance, not a 2-foot increase from a previous approval.
The additional deck, I assume, is not interfering with any type of sewer lines or septic or wellheads or anything like that?
No.
It's not. The planning and engineering department was consulted, and there's we got an email from them stating that they had no objection to the increased proposed increased size of the deck.
How high is the deck off the ground? Is this a 2-foot deck, a 6-foot, an 8? Just curious.
It's a sloping property, so the part we already had the variance for has about 5 steps down to the patio. But then when we extend it the other direction, it would have, I think, 2 steps. It's low, because it's lower on the new side, which is one of the nice parts about it.
Lower to the ground, okay.
Yeah. And I know it's closer to the property line, but it's further away from the neighbor in a sense because of the way the properties are the way the houses are.
Okay. Any other comments from the board or questions of the applicant at this time?
Not I.
No. Okay. Ma'am, did you have any other comments or questions you had for us or comments you want to make?
No.
Okay. If there's no further comments, I'm going to take it out to the public and see if anyone has any public comments in regard to this. If we could put up the call-in numbers. Okay. Once again, you can call into one of the numbers in the bottom left-hand portion of the screen and then put in the Zoom meeting ID number and you'll come into the meeting. Is there anybody on the call with us or in the meeting right now who wishes to make a comment in regard to this application? We'll just give it one more minute to see if anybody from the public wishes to call in regard to this application. Okay, it doesn't look like anyone is calling in. All right, so why don't we close down the public portion of the meeting now? Does anybody on the board have any further comments or questions of the applicant before we vote on this application? Nope. Okay, are we prepared to vote at this time?
Yes.
I am.
Okay. Denise, do you see, is Bart still with us? Bart, are you still with us? I see.
Yep.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay, so we should take I will take a motion as to the type of action.
Make a motion type 2.
I'll second.
Ms. DiPolito,
Aye.
Mr. Gio,
Aye.
Mr. Lansky,
Aye.
Mr. Newman,
Aye.
Chairman Canestra.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, someone should give a motion as to whether we're going to accept or deny the application and put any conditions upon it.
I'll make a motion to approve the application for a 9-foot area variance for a new deck in the rear yard.
Second.
Arnie, was that you?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms.
You're
DiPolito,
Did we have any buffering requirements with the first variance that we would carry over?
It's an interesting question. Does do Denise or Tom, do you know if we had any?
Yeah, so Mrs. Mackey, correct me if I'm wrong, there's already buffering in between. Yeah,
Deep,
yeah.
deep,
There's
deep, deep.
existing trees.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is there
Okay.
heavy foliage between the deck and your
Yeah,
adjoining
I have,
neighbor?
I don't know, 40-foot hemlocks. Big,
Pretty thick?
very thick, yeah.
Okay. So I assume if the neighbor was on the property, on their adjoining property, and they were look over at your deck, it'd probably be hard for them to see a lot of what's going on there.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay,
And we are planning, any, plantings and stuff like that too, but yeah,
yeah, that way everybody has their privacy, so,
yeah, absolutely.
okay, okay.
all right, so I'll go back. Ms. DiPolito,
Aye.
Mr. Gio,
Aye.
Mr. Lansky,
Aye.
Mr. Newman,
Aye.
and Chairman Canestra.
Aye,
Thank you.
congratulations, your application has been granted, and good luck with the new deck.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
evening.
Mrs. Mackey.
Thanks.
Last item on the agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes from May 18th, 2021. Did anybody have any changes or issues that we need to discuss?
I'm good.
No? Okay, I'm just going to approve by voice consensus. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we're going to approve, Denise, the May 18th, 2021 minutes.
Thank you.
It looks like our next meeting is scheduled for the third Tuesday in July, which is July 20th, 2021. I know we have at least 2 carry forward applications. Do we have any additional applications for next month's meeting?
We do, at least 1, possibly 2.
Okay.
Well,
All
we
right.
do. We have 2,
We have 2?
and then the 2 carryovers.
Okay, so we will have some work to do next month also. Okay, any further issues, comments, questions, board members, anything else we have to discuss?
No,
Um,
that Good.
Vic, I'm sorry, just as a reminder, we will not meet in August. So that brings us to September
Right, so
for,
anything,
yeah,
Yeah.
just as a reminder.
yeah, so if we don't resolve things next month, they'll have to be carried over to September. In the meantime, Tom will discuss working on a letter to town board to discuss this pending lot coverage issue with the mindset that we want to get a draft of this letter to the zoning board members so that everybody can have input and say before we send it over. But I think we do
Mhm.
have to work somewhat expeditiously here since town board is meeting fairly soon.
Yeah, I'll work on a draft tomorrow, get it to Tommy, and then Vic, you should take a look at it, and then I'll get it to the entire zoning board. And hopefully we can, by early next week, agree on a final draft so that I can get it on the agenda for the July 8th town board meeting.
Right. And I think we have to be fair with town board also in that they may have to think about it, discuss it with council, and, just because we're getting into them early, it doesn't mean that they can make an immediate decision on this,
I would agree.
I'm sure they have to
Right,
do
they're
the
gonna-
best they can, and, we have to just kind of work with it, so.
And I mean, they're
They'll
probably gonna
refer it
have
out. They'll refer it out to the planning board at a minimum,
Hmm.
I would
to,
imagine.
maybe a public
And-
hearing required as well. If they were to change it.
Right. Right. So, although it'd be great for the applicant to maybe have something by next month, we obviously can't guarantee that. So, we'll have to just proceed.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't
You want
see
to
that
just
happening.
circulate those, sorry, Tom, go ahead.
I don't see that happening that quick. It may even have to go to the county planning. With the code, modification or clarification.
Yeah. Do zoning law change like that. And, the town board may want to take some time and really look at this and think about it. And, obviously they're not going to rush a decision if they feel it's, inappropriate to do so. So, okay.
Denise, you want to just send us those cell phone numbers for the site visit, just in case we encounter dogs or anything like that?
Yes,
think-
I'll be honest with you. I don't have any cell phone numbers. But I'm
Oh.
sure Mrs. Greto, I will get them from her. We've been just dialoguing via email. And then, yes, I will get them just in case. I mean, it sounds like if there's a car there, don't go, or
Yeah.
call her and she'll bring the dog in. And then just as a reminder, everybody just has to kind of go on their own. Because if 4 or more of you are there together, it constitutes as a meeting.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so if there's no further business, we're going to wrap up the meeting. Thank you, everybody, and we'll meet as indicated next month, July 20th. Okay, everybody have a good
All
night.
right. Thank
a
you,
good night.
everybody.
Have a good
Thank you.
night.
Bye-bye.